The quiet blade. Strategic silence is not passive. It is an active maneuver that bends conversation into confession. When someone asks a question and then falls silent, the pause does more than create discomfort. It forces the other person to bridge the gap. Humans are wired to resolve tension, and silence feels like tension magnified. The target fills the space with words, often revealing more than they planned. Interrogators, lawyers, and seasoned negotiators all use this tactic. The brilliance lies in its subtlety. No raised voices, no accusations, only a stillness heavy enough to compel disclosure. The danger is that the one who cannot endure silence loses control of the exchange. In relationships, silence after an accusation can force a partner to reveal hidden details. In business, silence after an offer can make the other side improve their terms. The technique works because it feels unnatural to leave a thought hanging. But not all silence is manipulative. Sometimes it is reflection. To defend against the quiet blade, practice tolerating pauses. Breathe slowly. Keep your answer concise, and resist the urge to overshare. When wielded, this tactic is powerful because it carries no evidence of coercion. It feels like choice, when in fact it is pressure hidden in emptiness. The staircase of yes. Compliance is rarely demanded outright. Instead, it is built in increments, each step reinforcing the next. A manipulator begins with a small request, something trivial and hard to refuse. Once accepted, the next request is slightly larger, and the next larger still. The target, having said yes once, feels an unspoken need to remain consistent. To say no later feels like contradiction, even betrayal of their own self-image. Psychologists call this the foot in the door effect. It thrives on the human tendency to rationalize behavior. I agreed before, so I must agree again. By the time the real demand surfaces, refusal feels unnatural. In workplaces, this looks like taking on a small extra task, which slowly grows into constant unpaid responsibility. The half-truth cage. Manipulators often avoid outright lies. Instead, they wield fragments of truth, leaving gaps for you to fill. When someone offers only selective details, your mind completes the story, but always in the direction they intended. A partner may mention dinner with a friend, but omit who that friend was. A boss may announce cuts without naming the departments. A politician may cite numbers without context. The deception hides not in what is said, but in what is carefully unsaid. This makes confrontation slippery. After all, they did not lie. The missing context becomes the prison. Victims believe they reached conclusions on their own, yet those conclusions were engineered. The human brain craves completion. Presented with fragments, it invents coherence. And in doing so, it becomes complicit in its own manipulation. The half-truth cage is powerful because it wears the mask of honesty. To defend against it, demand specifics. Ask, what exactly do you mean? Who was there? What happened before that? Do not accept fragments. The difference between honesty and manipulation lies in the spaces between words. What is left out often carries more weight than what is spoken. The cage is not built from lies, but from silence wrapped around selective truth. The shifting definition. Words anchor reality, yet manipulators know they can loosen those anchors. They begin with shared definitions: commitment, loyalty, honesty. But when cornered, they twist the meaning. A broken promise becomes a misunderstanding. A betrayal becomes redefined as freedom. The original agreement dissolves in shifting language, leaving the target confused, defensive, and unsure of their footing. This tactic thrives on subtlety. A manipulator may claim, "That's not lying, it's just interpretation." Or commitment means different things to different people. Suddenly, the battlefield is no longer the action. It is the word itself. Victims spiral, questioning whether they misunderstood, overreacted, or misremembered. The hesitation weakens resistance, while the manipulator escapes accountability. Politics, business, and relationships are full of shifting definitions. because they erode certainty. Defending against this requires precision. Insist on definitions up front and return to them when challenged. Say, "We agreed this meant X. Has that changed?" Hold the word steady, otherwise, the ground beneath your reasoning will always slip away. The shifting definition works not by denying reality, but by redefining it. The flood of sorrow. Apologies can be genuine, but when used excessively, they disguise intent. A manipulator may constantly say, "I'm sorry," until the words lose meaning. The act of over-apologizing creates a mask of humility, lulling others into believing this person is harmless, incapable of manipulation. But beneath the constant apologies lies calculation. Each sorry draws reassurance. Each reassurance lowers defenses. Soon, the victim feels compelled to comfort rather than confront. This reversal shifts power. The manipulator is no longer under scrutiny. They are being protected. Over time, repeated apologies condition tolerance. Red flags are dismissed. Criticism is softened, and harmful patterns are excused. In relationships, this creates a cycle where harm is repeated but quickly forgiven. In workplaces, it allows colleagues to avoid responsibility while appearing remorseful. The brilliance of the tactic lies in its invisibility. Who suspects the one always apologizing? To defend against it, focus on actions, not words. Does behavior change after the apology? If not, the sorry is not a bridge. It is a shield. Excessive apologies are not about remorse. They are about control wrapped in the language of humility. The masked challenger, playing devil's advocate, can seem noble, questioning ideas to test their strength. But when used selectively, it becomes a weapon. The manipulator does not challenge all sides, only the ones that threaten their agenda. They pose as objective, balanced, even rational, but their skepticism flows in one direction. The target feels undermined, doubting themselves, while the manipulator's own stance goes unchecked. In relationships, this appears as reframing your feelings as irrational, while never questioning their own behavior. In workplaces, it shows up when a colleague nitpicks your ideas during meetings, but supports their own without scrutiny. The imbalance is masked by the illusion of fairness. Victims believe they are engaged in debate, when in truth, they are being slowly cornered. The tactic thrives because humans equate disagreement with reason, but fairness means equal scrutiny, not selective skepticism. The defense is noticing pattern. If someone always questions only your points, their neutrality is a mask. The masked challenger does not seek truth. They seek control disguised as reason. The pregnant silence. Silence can manipulate not only by withholding words, but by planting suggestions. A manipulator may speak half a sentence, then pause. Of course, people who really care wouldn't. The gap demands completion, and your mind rushes to fill it. Betray, lie, leave. Whatever you supply becomes the message, and because it feels like your thought, it embeds deeper than any spoken accusation. This silence feels unnatural, heavy, forcing you to interpret meaning. In politics, it lets crowds project their own hopes into a leader's vague words. In sales, it makes you imagine yourself enjoying a product without the pitch being spoken. In relationships, it makes you accuse yourself without them saying a word. The danger lies in ownership. You believe the idea came from within, when it was deliberately seeded. To defend, recognize the discomfort of unfinished sentences. Ask directly, "What do you mean?" Do not supply the ending. Pregnant silence is not emptiness. It is a trap where the manipulator makes you weaponize your own thoughts against yourself. The spotlight trick. Attention shapes importance. By highlighting one detail while ignoring the rest, manipulators distort perception. The boss may fixate on one missed deadline while disregarding years of reliable work. A partner may harp on a careless word while ignoring loyalty and care. The chosen fragment becomes monumental. while the broader truth fades. This works because human attention is finite. What is illuminated feels real. What is ignored shrinks. The manipulator doesn't need to lie. They only need to control focus. Victims find themselves defending the magnified flaw instead of pointing to the whole picture. Worse, they may internalize the distortion, believing the small mistake defines them. To defend, zoom out. Ask, what is the full pattern? What is being ignored? Remember, what is spotlighted is not always what is important. The spotlight trick is theater. The manipulator controls the stage, and you mistake their framing for truth. The exhaustion gambit. Fatigue erodes resistance. Manipulators exploit timing, pressing demands when the body and mind are worn down. A partner drags an argument late into the night until the other gives in. A boss waits until the end of a long day to pile on another task. A negotiator prolongs meetings until the target agrees just to escape the fog. This tactic doesn't rely on persuasion, but on depletion. When tired, judgment dulls and surrender feels easier than resistance. The victim rationalizes compliance as choice, but in reality, it was exhaustion speaking. This strategy is effective because it feels self-inflicted. I just don't care anymore. But the manipulator engineered that state. To defend, recognize patterns of timing. If demands always come when you're weakest, delay decisions until rested. Clarity requires energy. The exhaustion gambit proves control can be won, not through force, but through patience. The expert's cage. Authority commands trust. Manipulators exploit this by presenting themselves as the indispensable expert, the only one who knows how things work. They drip-feed information, exaggerate competence, and highlight your ignorance until reliance feels natural. Over time, the victim begins to believe independence is impossible. In relationships, one partner may claim only they can handle finances or social matters, leaving the other dependent. In workplaces, knowledge-hoarding bosses ensure employees must come to them for answers. In broader society, false gurus present themselves as keepers of truth. The cage is invisible because it feels like protection. You think you are being guided, but you are being bound. Each act of reliance tightens the bars until autonomy fades. To defend, verify expertise, seek multiple sources, and practice independence in small steps. Real experts teach to empower. Manipulators hoard to control. The expert's cage does not imprison with chains, but with the belief you cannot stand alone. The manufactured deadline. Urgency bends reason. Manipulators create false countdowns to bypass reflection. A salesperson insists the deal ends today. A partner warns, if you don't decide now, I'll assume you don't care. A boss demands an answer within minutes. The shrinking window pushes the victim into panic-driven compliance. Under time pressure, the brain shifts from analysis to instinct, prioritizing speed over accuracy. Fear of missing out or losing status silences doubts. The brilliance of the tactic is that the deadline doesn't need to be real. It only needs to feel real. Humans evolved to react instantly to danger. That wiring is hijacked. Politicians use it in campaigns. Parents use it in discipline. Cults use it to push recruits. The danger is that you act before you think. The defense is simple but difficult. Pause. Ask what happens if I don't decide now. If urgency dissolves under questioning, it was manufactured. Real deadlines are verifiable. False ones crumble when examined. The manufactured deadline is not about time. It is about stealing choice by removing space to breathe. The listening trap. Being heard feels safe, and manipulators exploit this need. They lean in, nod, and invite you to vent, creating an illusion of care. In the flood of words, defenses fall, vulnerabilities, regrets, and secrets spill out. But the listener isn't collecting compassion. They are collecting ammunition. Later, the confessions resurface. Even you admitted you're insecure, or they may be used to sabotage at work, or to deepen dependence in relationships. The trap works because venting feels like relief. Victims mistake surveillance for intimacy. Interrogators use it to extract information. Toxic friends use it to store leverage. Cult leaders use it to build dossiers of weakness. The danger is that the manipulation feels indistinguishable from empathy. To defend, notice the pattern. Do they use what you share against you later? Genuine listeners offer support. Manipulators weaponize your words. The listening trap proves that not all quiet ears are kind. Sometimes they are nets waiting to catch your truth. The echo trap. Repeating someone's last words sounds harmless, but it compels elaboration. You say, "I've been stressed." They softly echo, "Stressed?" Without realizing, you explain more. "Work's been heavy, my boss is pressuring me." You've revealed far more than you intended. The echo feels like interest, but it's a prompt for disclosure. Interrogators, therapists, salespeople, and manipulators all know its power. The victim empties themselves willingly, believing they guide the conversation. In reality, they are being led deeper. The danger is its subtlety. Echoing seems attentive, never intrusive, but layer by layer, the target hands over sensitive truths. To defend, notice when repetition is used too consistently. Ask yourself, am I revealing more than I intended? Silence after your own statement is not an invitation to expand, unless you choose it. The echo trap works because humans crave understanding, but not every listener is seeking to understand. Some are seeking control. The emotional label. Naming emotions for someone seems empathetic, but it shifts control. You're just tired. You're upset. You're nervous. Once labeled, feelings are reframed through the manipulator's lens. Anger becomes overreaction. Confidence becomes arrogance. Sadness becomes weakness. The victim begins to question their own emotions. Humans trust those who appear to understand them, but the labels can redirect perception. In conflicts, this tactic deflects accountability. You're just paranoid. In workplaces, frustration is dismissed as burnout. In politics, outrage is reframed as hysteria. The danger is that once someone controls how you define your emotions, they control how you act on them. The defense is reclaiming authorship. Replace, "You're saying I feel X" with "I feel Y." Name your emotions yourself. Emotional labeling feels like recognition, but often it is a subtle theft of your inner world. The manipulator doesn't just name your feelings, they rewrite them. The fog of words. Vagueness shields accountability. Instead of making falsifiable claims, manipulators speak in riddles. Things like this usually don't work out. You seem distant sometimes. The language feels meaningful, but dissolves under scrutiny. Usually means nothing. Sometimes cannot be measured. The brilliance lies in its flexibility. Whatever happens, the words can be twisted to appear correct. Victims struggle for clarity, filling in gaps with their own fears. Politicians thrive on this tactic, promising change without defining it. Abusive partners criticize vaguely, making defense impossible. Spiritual manipulators predict events in ambiguous terms, ensuring they always appear fulfilled. The fog works because humans crave certainty and project meaning where none exists. To defend, demand specifics. Ask, "What exactly do you mean? When? How often?" Vagueness evaporates under detail. The fog of words is not wisdom. It is camouflage, the withered smile. Praise is intoxicating, and its sudden withdrawal can be punishment sharper than insult. Manipulators flood you with validation, then strip it away without warning. The smile fades, compliments stop, affection dries up. The absence gnaws, making you desperate to win it back. This cycle of intermittent reinforcement is addictive. A crumb of praise feels like a feast after drought. Victims bend further, work harder, compromise deeper, not for growth, but to earn back what was stolen. The cruelty lies in invisibility. No harsh words, only the void where warmth once lived. Over time, self-worth becomes tethered to the manipulator's unpredictable approval. The defense is internal anchoring, building worth on actions, values, and self-measure rather than external validation. The withered smile proves absence can wound more than presence. Silence of praise is not neutrality. It is control. The overloaded yet confrontation expects resistance. But when the manipulator leans into criticism with exaggerated agreement, the rhythm collapses. You're right. I'm terrible. I'm the worst. Suddenly the critic feels cruel, guilty, even apologetic. The manipulator escapes accountability while gaining sympathy. The overloaded yes works because it flips roles. Instead of defending, the manipulator portrays themselves as the victim of harshness. Over time, people stop confronting them, knowing they will only end up feeling guilty. The tactic thrives in relationships, workplaces, and leadership. It disguises avoidance as humility. To defend, hold focus. This isn't about being terrible. It's about this action. Do not let exaggerated agreement derail the issue. The overloaded yes disarms confrontation by making criticism feel like cruelty. The battle ends before it begins, leaving the manipulator untouched. The convenient amnesia. Selective memory is a quiet escape hatch. The manipulator agrees to something, then later claims they never did. I don't remember that conversation. Did we really agree? Forgetfulness is human, forgivable, and nearly impossible to disprove. This makes it a perfect tool to dodge responsibility. Victims begin to doubt themselves, over-document, over-explain, and exhaust themselves in the effort to pin commitments down. The manipulator floats free, shielded by deniability. In relationships, trust erodes as one partner rewrites history. At work, deadlines slip under the cloak of "I forgot." Over time, victims begin carrying both sides of every agreement. The defense is written clarity, document agreements, repeat commitments aloud, and refuse to accept patterns of forgetting as harmless. Convenient amnesia is not weakness of memory. It is strength of manipulation, hidden in fragility. The humble mask. False modesty lowers defenses. Instead of boasting, the manipulator shrinks. I'm not that good. I was just lucky. Humility attracts trust, drawing people closer. But beneath the modesty lies calculation. While others rush to reassure, the manipulator gathers influence quietly. This tactic works because humans equate modesty with safety. A person who belittles themselves seems incapable of harm. Yet false humility is bait, not truth. In relationships, it draws endless validation. In business, it disarms competitors before striking. In leadership, it cloaks ambition behind just doing my best. The humble mask is dangerous because it makes you want to trust, to defend. Watch for patterns. Does modesty vanish when control is secured? Real humility seeks growth. False humility seeks power through lowered guard. The mask is soft, but the intent beneath is sharp. The cruel jest. Humor conceals hostility. A manipulator delivers an insult, then shields it with "just kidding." The sting lands, but the target is painted as humorless if they react. Laughter masks the blade. The tactic thrives in gray space, neither fully serious nor fully playful. Victims laugh along, absorbing the insult, or protest, and risk being cast as oversensitive. In relationships, it erodes confidence. You'd be attractive if you lost weight just joking. At work, it hides disrespect. You're bad at this. Just kidding. The manipulator wins either way. The danger is that trust corrodes. Every smile suspected of hiding venom. To defend, confront the pattern. Jokes don't feel like jokes when they always cut. Humor can heal or harm. The cruel jest uses laughter to wound while making you apologize for bleeding. the questioning blade. Instead of direct accusations, manipulators plant doubt through rhetorical questions. Are you sure that's what happened? Do you really think they meant it that way? These questions appear innocent, even curious, but their purpose is to destabilize. Unlike a statement, a question carries deniability. I was just asking. Yet it slices into certainty, leaving the target replaying events, doubting memory, and second-guessing judgment. In relationships, it corrodes confidence. If they cared, wouldn't they call more? At work, it undermines competence. Do you really think you're ready for this project? Politicians and rivals drop questions designed to linger, spreading mistrust without proof. The brilliance is that the victim does the work of tearing down their own certainty. The defense is clarity, separate questions from evidence. A rhetorical question without proof is suggestion, not truth. The questioning blade doesn't present facts. It presents poison wrapped in curiosity. The punishing silence. Unlike raised voices, the silent treatment wounds by absence. A manipulator withdraws completely. No replies, no acknowledgement, no eye contact. The silence becomes a wall, suffocating in its denial of connection. Humans are wired to fear disconnection. The brain interprets social exile as danger. Victims spiral, blaming themselves, begging internally for restoration. The manipulator's goal is not peace, but control. In relationships, silence forces compliance without confrontation. In families, children learn to equate obedience with love. In workplaces, colleagues are diminished by being ignored. The cruelty lies in resolution denied. Words, even harsh ones, can be argued. Silence cannot. Victims are trapped in limbo, repairing bonds that were broken deliberately. To defend, name the tactic. Ignoring me isn't communication. Refuse to accept absence as negotiation. The punishing silence is not neutrality. It is punishment dressed as withdrawal. The false ally. Premature agreement feels validating, but it is often mimicry. The manipulator nods quickly, echoing your words. Exactly. I feel the same. This fast alignment lowers defenses, creating an illusion of shared perspective. Victims open up, reveal vulnerabilities, and trust too soon, but the agreement isn't rooted in truth. It is infiltration. Salespeople wield it to soften resistance. Partners use it to accelerate intimacy. Leaders use it to charm. The danger is that the harmony feels real, and by the time you realize it was staged, you may have already revealed what they wanted. The defense is skepticism of instant resonance. Genuine agreement emerges gradually through discussion. When someone agrees too quickly, too perfectly, ask yourself, are they listening or are they mirroring? The false ally is not a companion, it is a disguise. The golden cage. Exclusivity magnifies value. Manipulators promise special access, unique bonds, or secret knowledge. I don't share this with anyone else. You're the only one who understands me. The target feels chosen, rare, and clings desperately to preserve that privilege. But exclusivity can be fabricated. The golden cage works because scarcity amplifies importance. Humans fight to protect what feels rare, even if it means ignoring red flags or sacrificing autonomy. Cults whisper of chosen few. Partners insist only you are different. Leaders promise insider roles. The cost is loyalty traded for illusion. Victims stay not because of reality, but because of fear of losing what feels unique. To defend, ask, is the bond genuine, or is it scarcity theater? True connection doesn't depend on exclusivity. The golden cage feels like privilege, but is captivity forged from desire to belong. The fractured mirror. Consistency is a cornerstone of trust. Manipulators shatter it with contradictions. One day they praise, the next they criticize. One moment they insist on a choice, the next they deny wanting it. The inconsistency is deliberate, not careless. It destabilizes. making the target doubt memory and perception. Victims wonder, did I misunderstand? Am I overreacting? The pattern erodes confidence until the manipulator becomes the only source of clarity. In relationships, it looks like hot and cold affection. In workplaces, it appears as constantly changing expectations. In arguments, it becomes, I never said that. The fractured mirror isn't about truth. It's about keeping others disoriented. The defense is documentation. Keep records of commitments and words. If reality shifts daily, it is not you, it is deliberate destabilization. The fractured mirror makes certainty vanish so that control can take its place. The sonic whip. Volume manipulates emotion more than content. A sudden shout startles, triggering adrenaline. A whisper forces hyperfocus, drawing the listener in. Manipulators shift volume deliberately, loud to intimidate, soft to suggest intimacy. The push-pull destabilizes, leaving victims off balance. Parents thunder in anger, then murmur disappointment. Bosses bark orders, then drop secrets in hushed tones to create hierarchy. Partners oscillate between yelling and whispering within the same argument. The sonic whip works because humans react instinctively to sound. Long before logic, volume changes. Bypass reason, seizing control of the nervous system. The defense is awareness. Ask yourself, am I reacting to meaning or to sound? Calm responses strip the tactic of its power. The sonic whip doesn't need strong arguments. It only needs a voice that jerks the leash of emotion. The power seat. Space speaks before words do. Manipulators control seating to shape dominance. Sitting at the head of the table, forcing others into corners, or placing themselves against light so the other squints. All are deliberate choices. Even proximity matters. Sitting beside creates intimacy. Across creates confrontation. The victim rarely questions positioning, yet unconsciously feels hierarchy. Leaders use it in boardrooms. Interrogators design rooms to corner suspects. Toxic partners dictate where you sit in public. The power seat works because humans read space instinctively. Elevated, central, commanding positions imply authority. Side, low or distant seats imply submission. To defend, choose your position consciously. Step out of corners. Claim equal ground. The power seat doesn't use words. It rearranges the room so the outcome tilts before dialogue begins. The shadow of authority. Invoking vague authority is a shortcut to compliance. Experts say, research proves. The statement carries weight without specifics, hijacking trust and knowledge. Listeners hesitate to challenge for fear of appearing ignorant or rebellious. The manipulator escapes accountability with deniability. I don't remember the exact study, but I know it's true. Politicians thrive on this, invoking faceless experts. In workplaces, managers invoke policy without citation. In relationships, partners insist. Most people agree to justify demands. The shadow works because humans are conditioned to respect authority. The defense is precision. Ask, which experts, which study, which policy? Vague authority evaporates under scrutiny. The shadow of authority doesn't need truth. It only needs confidence and your reluctance to challenge. It is not fact. It is theater of credibility. The emotional virus. Emotions spread faster than logic. Manipulators exaggerate feelings until they infect others. Loud laughter sparks group levity. Dramatic tears, silence, resistance. Explosive anger forces submission. Humans mirror emotions instinctively through neural wiring. Manipulators hijack this, escalating displays until others are swept along. Leaders use passion to rouse crowds. Partners escalate conflicts until both are raging. Salespeople exaggerate excitement to pressure buyers. Victims believe the emotion is theirs when it was planted. The defense is emotional distance. Ask, is this my feeling? Or am I catching theirs? Pause before reacting. Emotional viruses bypass thought, spreading through mimicry. The manipulator doesn't win with facts. They win by making you feel what they choose. The subtle trespass. Boundaries erode not by force, but by tiny violations. A joke that cuts slightly too deep. A touch that lingers a beat too long. A small request ignored. Each infraction is minor enough to excuse, not worth making a scene, but each accepted trespass stretches tolerance. Over time, serious breaches feel like a natural progression. Abusers, toxic bosses, and cult leaders all begin with subtle trespasses. The danger lies in politeness. Most people hesitate to push back on small things, fearing to seem dramatic. Manipulators count on this, testing limits step by step. The defense is naming violations early, no matter how small. If something feels wrong, call it. Boundaries are not lost in one blow. They dissolve piece by piece. The subtle trespass is patience weaponized. It waits until your no becomes impossible to find. The poisoned care. Criticism delivered as concern slips under defenses. Instead of blunt judgment, the manipulator softens their tone. I just worry how people see you when you act like that. Or I'm only saying this because I care. The sting lands, but it is hidden beneath the mask of compassion. Victims hesitate to resist, fearing they will appear ungrateful. Guilt replaces clarity. Soon judgment seeps into self-image as though it were guidance. Parents wield it to keep children compliant. Partners use it to undermine confidence while claiming affection. Bosses disguise control as mentorship. The tactic thrives because humans crave care, and when whiz arrive dressed as protection, they bypass suspicion. The defense is to separate tone from content. Ask, is this concern helping me or limiting me? True care supports growth. Poisoned care binds under the guise of love. It is not nurturing. It is control sugar-coated in sympathy. The puppet strings of love. Conditional affection turns intimacy into currency. At first, warmth flows freely. Praise, closeness, tenderness. But soon, affection is rationed. Smiles, touches, and kind words appear only when compliance is shown. I'm proud of you when you do this. I can't be close to you if you act like that. The primal fear of abandonment makes victims bend, sacrificing boundaries just to keep love alive. Parents train children this way. Partners use it to dominate. Leaders in cults reward loyalty with attention and punish resistance with coldness. Over time, love feels less like connection and more like obedience. The cruelty is that the victim mistakes this for genuine affection, craving the small doses as if they were proof of worth. The defense is recognizing that real love is not earned. It is given freely. Conditional affection is not intimacy. It is control disguised as devotion. The helpful chains. Control often arrives disguised as assistance. I'm just trying to help you. Trust me, I know what's best. The manipulator frames interference as generosity, taking decisions away while presenting themselves as savior. Each act of help binds tighter. The victim feels guilty, resisting. After all, refusing help seems rude or ungrateful. Over time, dependence grows until autonomy feels selfish. Parents impose control under the language of protection. Partners decide for you while insisting it is support. Leaders justify dominance as guidance. The brilliance lies in the reversal. What feels like care is actually captivity. The defense is to measure whether help empowers or diminishes. Real help expands your strength. Manipulative help keeps you weak, reliant and compliant. Helpful chains shine as kindness but tighten like shackles. The sugar-coated blade. Bad news often hides behind trivial positives. The manipulator begins with sweetness. Your package arrived early, then delivers the blow, but your payment failed. The small good softens defenses so the real harm cuts deeper. Employers praise effort before announcing layoffs. Partners compliment before breaking trust. Politicians distract with minor victories before revealing losses. Humans process information in sequence, and when a reward comes first, the brain relaxes. The second message hits harder, leaving victims stunned and less likely to resist. The cruelty lies in hope weaponized. The flicker of joy is ripped away instantly, leaving confusion in its place. The defense is awareness. Trivial positives paired with serious negatives often signal manipulation. The sugar-coated blade does not soften the wound. It sharpens it by contrast. The verbal avalanche, drowning truth in noise, is a subtle but devastating tactic. Instead of denying an accusation, manipulators flood the conversation with endless detail, tangents, side stories, irrelevant context. Victims strain to follow, searching for clarity, until exhaustion silences them. Politicians master this, speaking at length while saying nothing. Abusive partners recount entire histories to derail a single question. Con artists weave elaborate tales to overwhelm skepticism. The avalanche works because the human brain craves coherence. Faced with too much information, it cannot separate truth from distraction. The defense is simplicity, anchored to the core. That's not what I asked. Refuse to chase detail. The verbal avalanche appears like honesty, but it is concealment disguised as openness. Beneath the flood lies evasion. The trap of manners, politeness norms, become weapons when exploited. Society teaches us to smile, nod, and avoid rudeness. Manipulators push boundaries under this shield, knowing resistance risks appearing impolite. A stranger asks invasive questions with a grin. A colleague piles tasks sweetly onto your desk. Someone cuts in line, but smiles disarmingly. You comply not from choice, but from fear of seeming rude. The trap is invisible because etiquette is ingrained. Victims walk away drained, unsure why they agreed. The defense is learning to separate kindness from compliance. It is not rude to protect your time, your space, or your dignity. The trap of manners works because people fear judgment more than harm. To escape, redefine politeness as honesty, without hostility. Courtesy should not mean surrender. The hidden parable. Stories persuade more deeply than arguments. Manipulators tell tales with implied morals, never stating their lesson outright. I knew someone who ignored advice and lost everything. The listener absorbs the warning, believing they reached the conclusion themselves. Narratives bypass resistance because they don't feel like commands. They feel like wisdom. Partners recall anecdotes to shape behavior. Leaders use parables to instill obedience. Parents craft stories to secure compliance. Victims rarely realize they are being steered. The defense is to examine the lesson. Does the story serve truth, or does it serve the teller? The hidden parable works not by force, but by suggestion cloaked in narrative. You believe the insight is yours, when in fact it was planted. The flood of praise. Validation can unlock secrets. Manipulators overpraise, drowning the victim in flattery, until disclosure feels rewarding. That's brilliant. You're amazing. I've never met anyone as honest as you. The praise is intoxicating, creating a rush of belonging. To maintain the feeling, victims share more, oversharing details they would normally guard. In dating, it draws out vulnerabilities. In business, it coaxes strategy or mistakes. In therapy-like conversations, it uncovers insecurities. The tactic thrives because praise feels safe, but overpraise is bait. The defense is to notice excess. Genuine validation is measured, not overwhelming. The flood of praise is not admiration. It is extraction. The manipulator doesn't need truth. They need your willingness to hand it over, wrapped in eagerness to be celebrated. The helpless act. Feigning weakness is a quiet form of control. The manipulator sighs, I just don't know how to do this. Their body slumps, voice softens, words drip with resignation. Watching them struggle feels unbearable. So you step in, solving, fixing, carrying. The helpless act saves them effort while draining yours. In relationships, it excuses repeated mistakes. I'm just bad at remembering. At work, colleagues feign incompetence until others take over. Even children wield it instinctively, whining until someone ties their shoes. The act works because humans are wired for empathy, but the helplessness is staged. The defense is boundaries. Ask, is this truly beyond their ability? Or is it convenient weakness? Real inability seeks learning. False helplessness seeks labor. The helpless act is not fragility. It is exploitation. The deaf manipulator, pretending not to hear, erodes conviction. You give an answer clearly. They tilt their head, squint, or act distracted. What? I didn't catch that. Forced to repeat, irritation creeps in. By the third time, your tone softens, your words shift, your certainty weakens. Without realizing, you've reshaped your response closer to what they wanted. The tactic thrives on human discomfort with redundancy. People hate repeating themselves, so they adjust to avoid it. Negotiators use this to lower offers. Partners use it to dodge accountability. Parents use it to wear down children. The cruelty lies in subtlety. They never say no. They never argue. They simply act deaf until you change yourself. The defense is holding steady. Repeat without alteration or stop entirely. Feigned deafness is not confusion. It is pressure disguised as absence. The weighted breath. Not all manipulation uses words. A sigh, drawn out and heavy, communicates volumes without a sentence spoken. It signals disappointment, disapproval, or sadness, but remains unspoken enough to deny. I didn't say anything. I just sighed. Victims feel the weight, scrambling to correct behavior, soothe emotions, or apologize for a wrong never voiced. The brilliance lies in its ambiguity. A sigh cannot be proven hostile, yet it exerts pressure as strong as accusation. Parents wield it against children. Leaders sigh in meetings to wordlessly enforce standards. Partners sigh to escalate tension while claiming silence. The victim fills the gap, assigning meaning, often self-blame. The defense is recognition. Ask directly, what does that sigh mean? Forcing translation removes the manipulator's shield. Weighted breaths feel like emotion, but they are often strategy. A sigh can be genuine release, but when used deliberately, it becomes a leash disguised as air. The illusion of unity. The word we is one of the most persuasive tools in language. Instead of, I want this, the manipulator says, we both know this is best. Instead of you should, it becomes we need to. The shift creates false alignment. Humans crave belonging. And the word we activates loyalty. Suddenly refusal feels like betrayal of the group, not just one person. In workplaces, managers exploit this. We all need to sacrifice, while the burden falls on employees. In politics, leaders proclaim we the people, while pursuing personal agendas. In relationships, partners mask control as togetherness. The illusion works because it taps into primal fear of isolation. The defense is separating pronouns from reality. Ask, does this benefit us or just you? The illusion of unity is not collaboration. It is persuasion cloaked in solidarity, binding you with a pronoun that was never true. The clock dominance. Time itself can be a weapon. Arriving late again and again communicates one message. My time matters more than yours. Each minute of waiting erodes value, making the victim anxious, pliable, even grateful when the manipulator finally arrives. Bosses stroll into meetings late to establish hierarchy. Partners arrive late to dates to assert importance. Negotiators use lateness to throw opponents off balance. The brilliance lies in deniability. Traffic, busyness, forgetfulness. Excuses shield the disrespect. Over time, victims stop confronting, instead internalizing inferiority. Their schedule is just more important. The defense is boundaries. Do not normalize lateness as harmless. reclaim time by limiting access, ending meetings, or refusing to wait endlessly. Time is the one resource equal to all. Clock dominance twists it into a hierarchy where only one person's minutes truly count. The scarcity mirage. Scarcity magnifies desire. Manipulators invent scarcity to pressure decisions. There are only a few spots left. This opportunity won't come again. Humans equate rarity with value, even when the scarcity is false. Salespeople thrive on this. Cults preach it. Relationships exploit it. You'll never find someone else like me. The fear of loss overwhelms rational thought, forcing choices based on panic rather than reflection. The scarcity mirage is effective because the brain evolved to hoard rare resources. But scarcity is often manufactured theater. The defense is verification. Ask, is this truly limited, or is it made to appear so? Real value withstands time. False scarcity collapses when questioned. The mirage doesn't increase worth. It hijacks instinct to rush compliance before thought can intervene. The moving target. Consistency grounds fairness, but manipulators shift goals midstream. Success criteria change the moment they are met. A child is promised reward for cleaning their room, then told it wasn't clean enough. An employee reaches targets, only for new ones to appear. A partner demands trust, then changes the definition of loyalty. The moving target ensures the victim never feels finished, never earns satisfaction. Motivation erodes into exhaustion as the bar continually rises. The tactic thrives because the victim chases validation that never arrives, believing one more effort will suffice. The defense is clarity. Define expectations upfront and freeze them in place. Refuse to play a game where the rules change after every move. The moving target is not growth. It is control through endless striving. The comparison trap. Comparison is one of the fastest routes to insecurity. Manipulators wield it ruthlessly. Why can't you be more like them? Others don't complain this much. By holding up others as models, they diminish individuality and create constant inadequacy. Parents compare children, employers compare staff, partners compare relationships. The victim internalizes failure, striving to match standards designed to be unreachable. The cruelty lies in invisibility. Comparison is disguised as motivation, but it corrodes self-worth, replacing growth with resentment. The defense is self-measure. Compare yourself to your past, not to an arbitrary other. When someone frames worth through comparison, remember, the standard was chosen to disempower. The comparison trap is not inspiration. It is erosion packaged as encouragement. The guilt anchor. Few tools weigh heavier than guilt. Manipulators plant anchors in memory, past favors, sacrifices, or mistakes. After everything I've done for you, remember when you let me down? These reminders resurface whenever compliance is needed. The victim bends, not from agreement, but from obligation, to erase debt or avoid shame. The tactic thrives because humans are social creatures bound by reciprocity. To resist feels selfish, ungrateful, or cruel. Yet genuine giving does not demand repayment. The defense is recognition, is the reminder used to manipulate or to reflect truth. If guilt is invoked as leverage, the anchor must be cut. Gratitude is healthy. Guilt weaponized is a chain. The guilt anchor drags decisions not toward fairness, but toward submission. The double bind. A double bind traps the victim between two losing options. If you care, you'll stay silent. If you speak, it proves you don't care. Either choice leads to defeat. Manipulators use it to enforce compliance, while making resistance appear self-incriminating. Parents frame choices, so children can only disappoint. Partners twist arguments, so every path validates them. Leaders craft policies where dissent looks like betrayal. The brilliance is in framing. The victim doesn't see the hidden third option, refusing the bind altogether. The defense is stepping outside the frame. Say, this isn't the only choice. Reject the terms. The double bind works because it narrows vision. Expand the frame and the bind collapses. Without awareness, victims accept traps disguised as choices. The memory seed. Manipulators implant suggestions as if they were memories. Remember, you agreed to this. We talked about it last week. The target, uncertain, begins to question recall. Over time, the seed grows into false belief, reshaping memory itself. Gaslighting thrives on this tactic. Humans trust memory, but also know it is fragile. Doubt erodes confidence, leaving the manipulator as the arbiter of reality. In relationships, it undermines trust in self. At work, it allows denial of commitments. In politics, it rewrites history. The defense is evidence. Document agreements, anchor important details, and verify. Memory seeds grow only in soil of uncertainty. Awareness and record-keeping starve them. The tactic doesn't change the past. It changes your trust in your own mind. The isolation net. Separating victims from support networks makes them easier to control. Manipulators slowly undermine friends, criticize family, or discourage outside advice. They don't really understand you. I'm the only one who cares. Bit by bit, isolation grows until the victim has only the manipulator left. The tactic works because humans fear abandonment. With no external perspective, the manipulator becomes the only source of reality. In relationships, this is emotional captivity. In workplaces, it is enforced loyalty. In cults, it is doctrine. The defense is maintaining multiple sources of connection. Isolation thrives on secrecy. The more perspectives you hold, the harder control becomes. The isolation net does not protect intimacy. It cages it until you mistake captivity for closeness. The mirror mask. Flattery can be subtle, but mirroring is far stronger. Manipulators reflect posture, speech patterns, and interests until the victim feels uncanny rapport. You love that band? Me too. I was just thinking the same thing. The technique works because humans trust similarity. We are wired to bond with reflections of ourselves. But mirroring, used with intent, isn't connection, it's camouflage. Salespeople copy gestures to build trust. Partners adopt hobbies to accelerate intimacy. Leaders echo group values to secure loyalty. The danger is that the bond feels genuine, yet it is an engineered performance. The defense is time. Genuine alignment withstands depth and difference. Mirroring collapses once individuality surfaces. If someone feels too perfect a match too quickly, ask yourself, are they similar or are they reflecting? The mirror mask is not likeness, it is bait. The token gesture, a small act of generosity, can be used to justify greater demands. Manipulators offer trivial favors, holding a door, buying a coffee, giving a compliment. Later, they cash it in for disproportionate returns. After what I did for you, can't you help me with this? Humans are wired for reciprocity. Even small debts feel heavy. The tactic thrives because the imbalance goes unnoticed until the demand arrives. In workplaces, token support justifies overwork. In relationships, small kindnesses mask larger neglect. In politics, symbolic gifts distract from systemic harm. The defense is proportionality. Ask, does the return match the favor? Reciprocity should be balanced. The token gesture is not kindness. It is currency minted for manipulation. The fear anchor. Fear anchors behavior faster than reason. A manipulator links disobedience to threat, rejection, punishment, ridicule, abandonment. If you leave, you'll regret it. If you fail, you'll be nothing. Once fear is tied to action, compliance follows automatically. Parents weaponize disappointment. Partners weaponize rejection. Leaders weaponize catastrophe. Fear works because the human brain prioritizes survival over exploration. Once conditioned, The anchor holds even without reinforcement. Victims stop questioning not because the threat is present, but because it has been internalized. The defense is absursi. Face the fear, test its reality, and watch the anchor loosen. Fear is powerful, but much of it is suggestion. The fear anchor thrives on belief, not fact. The reversal frame, accusations can be flipped with startling ease. When challenged, the manipulator projects the charge outward. You're the one being controlling. You're the liar, not me. The reversal frame works because defense replaces offense. The victim shifts to proving innocence rather than pressing accountability. Over time, the reversal becomes pattern. Every confrontation circles back until the victim doubts their own role. In relationships, this is toxic inversion. In workplaces, it silences whistleblowers. In politics, it reframes corruption as accusation against rivals. The defense is staying anchored to facts. Document evidence, repeat the original claim, and resist chasing projection. The reversal frame is not defense. It is misdirection meant to exhaust truth into silence. The drip feed. Information is power, and manipulators control it by rationing. Instead of offering full truth, they release fragments, always keeping the victim dependent for more. Each piece feels like revelation, but crucial details remain withheld. This creates dependency. The victim waits for the next drop, never able to see the full picture. In relationships, this appears as half-truths. In workplaces, it manifests as bosses who hoard knowledge. In cults, it is doctrine revealed in stages. The drip feed works because humans crave completion. Incomplete puzzles demand resolution, keeping attention locked. The defense is direct demand for wholeness. Tell me everything now. If full disclosure is refused, recognize the tactic. The drip feed is not information. It is control disguised as revelation. The rehearsed vulnerability. Sharing weakness appears to build trust. Manipulators exploit this by staging vulnerability, revealing rehearsed stories of hardship to appear relatable. Tears flow at precise moments. Confessions arrive too early. Wounds are displayed selectively. The victim, touched by the display, opens up in return, believing intimacy is mutual. But the vulnerability was bait, designed to harvest disclosures. In dating, this accelerates closeness. In leadership, it inspires loyalty. In manipulation, it sets traps. The defense is context. Does the vulnerability match timing and depth? Real pain surfaces organically. Rehearsed pain arrives on schedule. The rehearsed vulnerability is not intimacy. It is performance meant to unlock yours. The contradictory command. Orders arrive in paradoxes. Be spontaneous. Relax quickly. Don't think about it. Each instruction cancels itself, leaving the victim trapped in failure no matter what they do. Contradictory commands destabilize, creating anxiety and dependence. Parents issue them to enforce obedience. Partners use them to confuse. Bosses craft them to assert dominance. The victim struggles to comply, never succeeding, always striving. The brilliance is that the manipulator never has to admit fault. The failure always lies with the victim. The defense is recognition. Call the contradiction out. Those instructions cancel each other. Naming it breaks the spell. Contradictory commands are not guidance. They are cages of logic designed to fail. The false choice. Limiting options creates control. Do you want to leave now or later? Are you choosing me or them? The manipulator frames the question so that whichever option you select, their agenda is served. Real alternatives are hidden. The false choice works because humans prefer choosing over resisting. Decisions feel voluntary, even when both paths are traps. Salespeople offer packages instead of freedom. Partners offer ultimatums disguised as preference. Leaders frame policy as binary, us or chaos. The defense is expansion. Ask, what other options exist? If a choice feels narrow, widen it yourself. The false choice is not decision. It is illusion of freedom within a cage. The echo chamber, agreement repeated, becomes truth. Manipulators surround victims with reinforcement. Friends, media, groups that echo the same beliefs. Doubt erodes. Certainty hardens. Resistance dissolves. Cults thrive on this, isolating followers within walls of repetition. Partners build it by discrediting outside voices. Leaders flood environments with slogans and chants. The echo chamber works because the brain mistakes repetition for reality. The defense is diversity of input. Seek multiple perspectives, even contradictory ones. Echoes feel like support, but they are confinement disguised as consensus. The echo chamber doesn't reveal truth. It buries it under volume. The intermittent reward. Nothing binds behavior more than unpredictability. Manipulators alternate between affection and withdrawal, kindness and cruelty, reward and punishment. The uncertainty hooks deeper than consistency. A gambler pulls the lever not because of guaranteed payout, but because maybe this time it will happen. Relationships poisoned by this cycle become addictive. Victims chase rare moments of love, enduring long stretches of coldness. Workplaces use it in promotions, rewarding sporadically to keep employees striving endlessly. The intermittent reward is powerful because the brain clings hardest when outcomes are inconsistent. The defense is stepping back. Does the pattern serve you or chain you? Intermittent reward is not love. It is a slot machine disguised as connection. The gratitude trap. Manipulators frame their control as kindness so resistance feels ungrateful. They remind you of sacrifices, favors, and efforts. After everything I've done, this is how you treat me. Gratitude, a noble impulse, is twisted into compliance. The victim hesitates to assert boundaries, fearing to appear selfish or cruel. Parents enforce obedience by recalling decades of care. Partners silence protests by highlighting small gestures. Employers exploit loyalty by reminding staff of opportunities given. The gratitude trap works because humans are conditioned to honor reciprocity. But genuine giving does not demand silence or servitude. The defense is to distinguish gift from leverage. If gratitude is used as currency, it is no longer kindness. It is debt disguised as love. The invisible contract. Unspoken expectations are powerful chains. Manipulators create contracts in their mind, rules never agreed upon, then punish you for breaking them. You should have known I wanted this. If you cared, you would do that. The invisible contract binds without consent. Victims scramble to predict needs, anxious to avoid blame for breaches of rules they never saw. In relationships, this creates walking on eggshells dynamics. In workplaces, it enforces unpaid labor. The tactic works because humans fear disappointing unseen standards. The defense is clarity. Ask directly, what did we agree on? Refuse punishment for rules never shared. An invisible contract is not agreement. It is ambush, dressed as obligation. The manufactured chaos. Order empowers. Chaos disorients. Manipulators create confusion. Last-minute changes, mixed signals, inconsistent stories, until victims cannot track reality. In that fog, the manipulator becomes the only source of stability. Families experience this through volatile moods. Workplaces drown in shifting expectations. Politics thrives on chaos, where fear silences questions. The brilliance lies in dependency. When everything feels unstable, the manipulator seems like the anchor. The defense is self-grounding. Document facts, organize information, and refuse to live inside another's storm. Manufactured chaos is not incompetence. It is strategy to make you cling to the very hand that shakes you. The forced confession. Sometimes the goal is not truth, but guilt. Manipulators pressure victims into confessing to sins they never committed. Through repeated suggestion, loaded questions, and relentless doubt, the victim breaks down. Maybe I did cause this. Maybe it is my fault. The confession arrives not because of evidence, but because of exhaustion. Interrogators overuse it. Parents extract it to enforce obedience. Partners demand it to absolve themselves. Once confessed, the victim carries guilt that does not belong to them, and the manipulator holds leverage forever. The defense is resisting false ownership. Ask for proof. Do not accept accusations that shift endlessly. A forced confession is not accountability. It is theft of innocence, repackaged as honesty. The chain of small lies. Large lies attract suspicion. Small ones slip by unnoticed. Manipulators layer minor falsehoods, irrelevant details, small omissions, harmless distortions. Each feels too trivial to challenge. Over time, the small lies build a foundation, sturdy enough to support large deception. By then, the victim has accepted so many fragments that questioning the whole feels impossible. Partners conceal affairs with harmless omissions. Politicians normalize dishonesty by starting with statistics framed incorrectly. Businesses exaggerate small claims until entire campaigns rest on fiction. The defense is vigilance. Small lies matter because they signal intent. Truth doesn't erode in one blow. It dissolves drip by drip. The chain of small lies is not harmless. It is scaffolding for greater betrayal. The endless favor. One request becomes a flood. Manipulators begin with a reasonable ask, then pile on more, each justified by the first. Since you're already here, could you also? Victims comply, not realizing the slope until exhaustion hits. The endless favor is powerful because refusal grows harder over time. Having agreed once, saying no later feels inconsistent. In workplaces, this means unpaid overtime. In relationships, it means sacrificing rest, boundaries, even identity. The defense is to treat each request independently. Prior consent does not imply endless compliance. The endless favor masquerades as opportunity for kindness. In reality, it drains until nothing remains. The identity hook. Manipulators tie obedience to identity. You're a good son, so you'll do this. You're loyal, so you'll agree. The victim resists not only a request, but the label that defines them. No longer is it about action. It is about self-image. To refuse feels like betraying who you are. Leaders frame patriotism this way. Families frame love this way. Relationships frame loyalty this way. The identity hook thrives because humans cling to labels. They provide stability, belonging, meaning. The defense is to separate identity from action. You are not defined by obedience. True character stands without proof. The identity hook is not affirmation. It is a trap baited with self-worth. The infinite debt. Some debts are never meant to be repaid. Manipulators invent permanent obligations. After everything I've sacrificed, you owe me forever. Even when repayment exceeds the original gift, the debt remains alive. Victims spend years, even lifetimes, trying to balance scales that were designed to stay uneven. Parents use this to control adult children. Partners weaponize it to trap relationships. Leaders bind followers with fabricated sacrifice. The defense is recalibration. Debt has limits. Reciprocity ends when balance is reached. Infinite debt is not gratitude. It is enslavement, wrapped in memory of past favors. The shattered timeline. When caught, manipulators distort time. That never happened. You're remembering wrong. It was weeks ago. Why bring it up now? By blurring timelines, they weaken evidence and shift focus. Victims question their memory, their right to recall, even their sanity. In relationships, it erodes trust and perception. At work, it undermines accountability. In politics, it rewrites history. The shattered timeline thrives because memory is fragile, and once doubt enters, it spreads. The defense is records, dates, times, evidence. Memory can be shaken, But proof restores reality. The shattered timeline is not forgetfulness. It is deliberate erasure disguised as confusion. The fabricated enemy. Nothing unites loyalty faster than a common enemy. Manipulators invent one to bind followers. They're out to get us. Others don't want us to succeed. The external threat justifies control, obedience, and sacrifice. Victims cling closer to the manipulator, believing they are safe only inside the circle. In relationships, this becomes your friends don't really like you. In workplaces, other departments are against us. In politics, the outsiders threaten everything. The fabricated enemy works because fear bonds groups tightly, silencing dissent within. The defense is to examine evidence of the threat. Manufactured enemies often vanish under scrutiny. Real threats exist. But when enemies always appear conveniently, question who benefits. The fabricated enemy is not protection. It is loyalty manufactured through fear. The twisted humor. Jokes can cut deeper than insults. Manipulators hide cruelty inside humor, delivering jabs as playful remarks. You'd be smart if you actually tried. Just kidding. The victim laughs awkwardly, unsure if offense is justified. If they protest, the manipulator retreats. Relax. It was just a joke. The sting remains, but accountability vanishes. Over time, confidence erodes, and the victim doubts their right to feel hurt. In relationships, this normalizes disrespect. At work, it disguises bullying as camaraderie. In politics, it cloaks hostility in satire. The twisted humor tactic thrives because denial is built in. The aggressor always has an exit. The defense is to name it. That didn't sound like a joke. Stripped of cover, the cruelty stands exposed. Twisted humor is not comedy. It is hostility smuggled inside laughter. The authority costume. Symbols of power command respect. Manipulators wear them like costumes, titles, uniforms, jargon, credentials. Even when unearned, these markers silence resistance. As a professional, I can assure you, I've studied this for years. The performance exploits conditioning to obey authority. Victims comply, not because the claim is true, but because it sounds official. In workplaces, inflated titles exaggerate competence. In relationships, credentials justify dominance. In society, vague expertise shields manipulation. The authority costume thrives because humans are taught to tote symbols, not substance. The defense is scrutiny. Credentials must be relevant. Authority must be earned. A costume does not equal truth. It is theater designed to disguise control as expertise. The shifting spotlight. Manipulators dictate what matters by choosing where attention falls. A single mistake is magnified until it overshadows years of success. Meanwhile, their own flaws vanish into darkness. By controlling the spotlight, they rewrite the script of memory. Bosses harp on minor failures while ignoring loyalty. Partners replay one argument endlessly while burying kindness. Leaders spotlight threats to distract from corruption. The tactic thrives because human focus is finite. What is illuminated feels important. What is ignored feels irrelevant. The defense is balance. Step back. View the whole stage. If only one flaw shines, ask what lies hidden in the dark. The shifting spotlight is not truth. It is stagecraft meant to trap you in their theater. The manufactured rescue. Some create harm only to save you from it. Manipulators engineer crises, small disasters, invented emergencies, or deliberate sabotage. Then swoop in as the hero. The victim feels gratitude, not realizing the rescuer lit the fire they extinguished. Partners create drama to prove devotion. Bosses withhold solutions only to step in later. Leaders invent threats to frame themselves as protectors. The brilliance lies in reversal. The manipulator becomes savior rather than saboteur. The defense is tracing origins. Who benefits from the crisis? Who gains control after the rescue? If the rescuer always appears too conveniently, they may also be the arsonist. Manufactured rescues don't protect. They trap you in gratitude to the very hand that struck first. The false neutrality, pretending to stand above conflict, is itself manipulation. I don't take sides becomes a shield, yet neutrality always favors one position. The status quo, the powerful, the aggressor. Manipulators claim fairness while silently tipping scales. A boss stays neutral in disputes, protecting abusive staff. A partner refuses to intervene, enabling harm. A leader invokes neutrality while benefiting from oppression. The tactic thrives because neutrality appears virtuous, but silence is never neutral. It always serves someone. The defense is to examine outcomes. Who benefits when nothing changes? False neutrality is not balance. It is hidden alliance disguised as fairness. The memory rewrite. Events can be reshaped by retelling. Manipulators repeat distorted versions of history until the victim accepts them as true. That's not how it happened. You always exaggerate. Over time, confidence in memory erodes. Arguments end not in resolution, but in confusion about reality itself. Partners gaslight. Employers deny promises. Leaders rewrite national narratives. The memory rewrite works because repetition hardens fiction into fact. The defense is recording journals, witnesses, documents. Written truth resists erosion. Without evidence, the manipulator becomes the author of your past. The memory rewrite isn't correction. It is theft of your own story. The fragile shield, feigning fragility, flips power. Manipulators exaggerate sensitivity to avoid accountability. Don't be so harsh. I can't handle this. Criticism dissolves into caretaking. As the victim shifts from confronting to comforting, over time, the manipulator escapes responsibility by weaponizing weakness. Partners use tears to end arguments. Colleagues play delicate to dodge tasks. Leaders pose as vulnerable under scrutiny. The fragile shield thrives because compassion is instinctive. The defense is separation. Acknowledge emotion while holding boundaries. Care for pain without surrendering truth. Fragility deserves empathy, but when used as shield, it becomes armor that protects manipulation instead of honesty. The confusion fog, excessive jargon, vague language, or rapid shifts of topic create fog where clarity should live. Manipulators rely on obscurity to silence questions. Victims, embarrassed to admit confusion, nod along, surrendering understanding. Salespeople bury contracts in fine print. Leaders drown audiences in complexity. Partners overwhelm with circular logic. The fog works because humans fear looking ignorant. The defense is boldness. I don't understand. Explain clearly. True expertise clarifies, not obscures. The confusion fog isn't knowledge. It is camouflage meant to hide intent. The silent debt. Some obligations are never spoken, only implied. Manipulators create invisible ledgers where every interaction is tallied. Smiles, favors, patience, each becomes a debt you never agreed to. Later, the bill arrives. After all I've done, you owe me. Victims comply out of guilt, unaware the debt was imagined. The silent debt thrives because unspoken rules are hardest to dispute. The defense is exposure. Ask what debt exists and why. If it was never agreed upon, it is void. True generosity leaves no ledger. Silent debts are inventions forged to bind without consent. The false horizon. Hope is powerful, and manipulators exploit it with promises that always remain just out of reach. Promotions are coming soon. Affection is almost here. Change is around the corner. Victims endure mistreatment for the reward that never arrives. In relationships, love is dangled, but never delivered. At work, recognition is always one project away. In society, progress is promised but postponed forever. The false horizon works because humans can endure much if hope remains alive. The defense is timeline. Ask when, how, and under what conditions. Hope without evidence is bait. The false horizon isn't motivation. It is endless waiting, disguised as future reward. The vanishing standard. Rules appear clear until they dissolve the moment you meet them. Manipulators set expectations, finish the task, follow the rule, meet the condition. But once achieved, the standard shifts or vanishes. That's not what I meant. I never said it had to be that way. Victims chase endlessly, always behind a target designed to move. Parents demand perfection, but redefine it daily. Bosses shift metrics, so employees never earn stability. Partners insist on boundaries that only they may break. The vanishing standard thrives because humans crave fairness, but the absence of a fixed measure turns effort into futility. The defense is clarity and permanence. Lock standards in writing. Confirm definitions. If rules evaporate when met, the system was never about growth. It was about control. The rotating favor. Manipulators cycle favors like revolving debt. They help just enough to claim credit, then demand repayment, erasing the balance once it's in their favor. I did this for you. Remember, if the victim points to their own contributions, the manipulator dismisses them or shifts the goalposts. The favor always rotates back into obligation. In families, this sustains cycles of guilt. In workplaces, it becomes justification for exploitation. In relationships, it binds love to debt. The tactic thrives because reciprocity is a deep human instinct. The defense is record-keeping and refusal to accept infinite repayment. True favor ends once balanced. A rotating favor is not generosity. It is leverage on repeat. The strategic breakdown, sudden displays of collapse, crying, anger, withdrawal, halt, confrontation. The manipulator's breakdown shifts focus from their actions to their emotions. I can't talk about this now. It's too much. The victim retreats, offering comfort, abandoning the original issue. Partners use breakdowns to avoid accountability. Leaders perform overwhelm to escape scrutiny. Colleagues feign stress to push work away. The brilliance lies in redirection. The manipulator becomes the one needing support. The defense is separation. Acknowledge emotion without abandoning truth. Support can coexist with accountability. A strategic breakdown is not weakness. It is escape dressed as collapse. The chained apology. Apologies can conceal more than they reveal. Manipulators issue half-hearted or conditional apologies that shift blame. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry, but you started it. The words soothe tension without admitting fault. Victims hear apology and assume resolution, but the chain remains. Nothing is truly owned. Over time, repeated empty apologies numb resistance. The defense is examining structure. Does the apology accept responsibility, or does it redirect? Genuine remorse names the harm and commits to change. The chained apology offers words without substance. It is not healing. It is maintenance of control. The drowning detail. Sometimes too much truth is its own weapon. Manipulators over-explain, drowning victims in unnecessary context, until clarity suffocates. Questions go unanswered, buried under irrelevant stories. Partners derail accountability with endless tangents. Politicians smother inquiries with walls of jargon. Colleagues flood conversations with minutiae to distract from failure. The drowning detail thrives because humans assume volume equals honesty. But excess words conceal intent. The defense is interruption. Answer simply, yes or no. If truth requires drowning, it is likely being buried. The emotional auction. Manipulators pit emotions against each other, forcing victims to bid higher to win affection. One day, kindness is rewarded. The next, sacrifice is demanded. If you loved me, you'd do more. Victims escalate efforts, chasing a prize that always shifts. The auction never ends, only increases in cost. In relationships, this becomes emotional bidding wars. In families, siblings are compared for devotion. In workplaces, employees compete for approval. The defense is withdrawal. Stop bidding. Love, respect, and recognition are not auctions to be won. If value must be purchased with compliance, the prize is counterfeit, the borrowed authority. Instead of claiming power themselves, manipulators invoke outside authority selectively. Experts agree. Everyone thinks so. No source is given, no specifics offered. The borrowed authority thrives because challenging it feels like challenging entire groups or institutions. Victims comply, intimidated by invisible consensus. Politicians thrive on it. Parents lean on it. Marketers depend on it. The defense is precision. Ask, which expert? Where is it written? Authority without evidence is costume. Borrowed authority is not truth. It is bluff hidden behind invisible allies. The one-way mirror. Manipulators observe closely while revealing nothing of themselves. They ask questions, probe insecurities, and study reactions, gathering data like weapons. Meanwhile, they remain opaque, never offering vulnerability. Over time, the victim feels known, yet knows nothing in return. In relationships, this imbalance creates intimacy without reciprocity. In workplaces, it builds leverage for exploitation. In politics, it fuels surveillance over transparency. The defense is reciprocity. If someone always learns about you but never shares, question the balance. The one-way mirror is not curiosity. It is surveillance, disguised as care. The guilt mirage. Victims are convinced harm was their fault, even when it wasn't. Manipulators twist outcomes. If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have reacted. You made me do this. Responsibility vanishes into smoke, reappearing on the victim's shoulders. Over time, self-blame becomes instinct. The guilt mirage thrives because humans seek patterns. If something went wrong, there must be cause. The manipulator offers a convenient answer. You. The defense is drawing lines. Each person owns their behavior. Guilt that comes from another's refusal of responsibility is illusion. The guilt mirage is not accountability. It is projection with teeth. The drained clock. Exhaustion is a quiet prison. Manipulators prolong conversations, stretch conflicts, and drain time until resistance collapses. Arguments circle endlessly until the victim agrees, just to stop the fatigue. Workloads are piled gradually until energy is gone. Relationships spiral into marathon disputes. The tactic thrives because tired minds comply faster. Fatigue silences logic. The defense is ending the loop. We will discuss this later. Rest restores clarity. The drained clock is not compromise. It is surrender extracted by exhaustion. The disappearing context. Manipulators rarely need to lie outright. Instead, they remove key pieces of information, letting you fill the gaps incorrectly. I was out with a friend, they say, omitting who. The budget was adjusted, they say, omitting what department without full context. Your mind supplies assumptions, which feel like independent conclusions, but are engineered misinterpretations. This tactic thrives because the human brain craves completion. When information is partial, we build the missing pieces ourselves, believing the picture is ours. The defense is precision. Ask the missing questions. Who, when, why? What's left unsaid is often more revealing than what's spoken. The disappearing context is not honesty. It is half-truth sharpened into a cage. The redefined word. Shared language gives stability. Manipulators destabilize it by subtly redefining terms mid-conversation. Commitment means different things. That wasn't a lie. It was a misinterpretation. Suddenly, what once felt agreed upon becomes blurry. The victim feels confused, even foolish for clinging to the original definition. This tactic thrives Because language anchors trust. Once shaken, certainty collapses. The defense is to hold definitions firm. What did you mean by this word when you used it? Shifting language isn't nuance. It's evasion. The redefined word is not dialogue. It is reality rewritten in real time. The overloaded when criticized, some manipulators avoid resistance by leaning into agreement with exaggerated humility. You're right. I'm terrible. I'm the worst. The critic disarmed, retreats from confrontation, feeling guilty for pushing too hard. Accountability dissolves into pity. The overloaded yes thrives. Because conflict expects resistance. Overcompliance feels unnatural, forcing the aggressor to soften. In relationships, it shuts down arguments. At work, it reframes mistakes as quirks. The defense is persistence, agreement is not change. Overloaded yes is not remorse. It is deflection masked as humility. The convenient amnesia. Memory becomes weapon when manipulators feign forgetfulness. Promises vanish. Agreements dissolve. I don't remember saying that. Did we really decide that? The victim doubts their own recall, scrambling for evidence. Over time, trust in memory erodes, and the manipulator escapes accountability again and again. This tactic thrives because forgetfulness is forgivable. It feels human. The defense is documentation, records, notes, confirmations. Convenient amnesia is not memory loss. It is deliberate escape disguised as accident. The humble mask. False modesty lowers defenses. I'm not that smart. I was just lucky. Victims relax, convinced they face no threat. Yet the mask hides sharp intention. While praised as self-deprecating, the manipulator collects trust, admiration, and secrets from those who underestimate them. Partners feign insecurity to draw validation. Colleagues downplay skill before outperforming rivals. Leaders pose as reluctant heroes to tighten grip. The humble mask thrives because humility is disarming. The defense is alignment. Does their action match their words? If modesty hides ambition, the mask is camouflage, not truth. The questioning blade. Instead of direct criticism, manipulators slice confidence with questions, dripping implication. Are you sure that's wise? Isn't it strange how that keeps happening? The words seem innocent, yet they carve doubt into the mind. Victims replay decisions, unraveling certainty without proof of wrongdoing. The questioning blade thrives because questions bypass defenses. They don't accuse, they plant. The defense is awareness. Not every question seeks truth. Some are daggers wrapped in curiosity. The questioning blade is not inquiry. It is sabotage disguised as dialogue. The punishing silence. Words can be challenged. Silence cannot. Manipulators withdraw completely. No eye contact. No replies. No acknowledgement. The void feels suffocating. Victims spiral, desperate to restore connection, often bending or apologizing for faults, never theirs. The punishing silence thrives because humans fear abandonment. It shifts power without words. The defense is endurance. Recognize silence as tactic, not truth. Distance from it rather than rushing to fill it. Punishing silence is not peace. It is control delivered through absence. The false ally. Premature agreement disarms. Manipulators echo your words instantly. Exactly. That's so true. The speed of validation feels intoxicating. Lowering defenses. You open further, revealing vulnerabilities to someone who never earned your trust. Salespeople use it to soften resistance. Leaders use it to charm. Partners use it to accelerate closeness. But the alignment is mimicry, not reality. The defense is pacing. True alliance builds over time, not in moments. The false ally is not agreement. It is infiltration disguised as solidarity. The golden cage. Promises of exclusivity create loyalty. I don't usually share this, but with you, you're different from the others. Victims feel chosen, clinging tighter to preserve what feels rare. Exclusivity magnifies value, making ordinary bonds feel extraordinary. Yet the privilege is conditional, revoked at the manipulator's will. Families, cults, and partners all exploit this. The golden cage thrives because scarcity binds devotion. The defense is testing. If exclusivity requires surrendering freedom, it is not privilege, it is prison. The golden cage doesn't elevate you. It traps you in loyalty forged from illusion. The fractured mirror. Contradiction destabilizes. Manipulators praise you one moment and criticize the next, agree today and deny tomorrow. Consistency evaporates. Victims spin in confusion, doubting memory and judgment. Hot and cold affection, shifting rules, constant reversals. Each shatters certainty until only dependency remains. The fractured mirror thrives because humans crave patterns. When patterns collapse, victims cling harder, desperate for stability. The defense is detachment. Recognize contradiction as tactic, not reflection of your worth. The fractured mirror is not chaos by accident. It is design, destabilization, crafted to keep you in their grip.